What happens when we die? Is it oblivion, a final fading into nothingness? Or could it be something far more profound? A journey inward, through the very depths of our own minds. For centuries, Tibetan Buddhists have turned to a sacred text known as the Bardo, or the Tibetan Book of the Dead, for guidance through life's final passage, traditionally used as a prayer manual to guide the deceased through the perilous transitions between death and rebirth. This enigmatic book is filled with vivid descriptions, mysterious deities, and profound symbolism. But what if the Bardo is more than a spiritual guidebook? What if, hidden within its esoteric verses, lies a powerful key to understanding the very nature of our own psyche? This is the question we will explore in our journey today. By viewing the Bardo through the lens of modern psychology, particularly the groundbreaking work of Carl Jung, we will uncover a profound map of the human unconscious, a symbolic guide to the hidden realms of the mind that we must all navigate, not only in death, but throughout our lives. In the coming minutes, we will see how the stages of the Bardo, the Chikai, Chonyid, and Sidpa Bardos mirror the process of confronting and integrating the deep structures of the unconscious mind. We will explore how the peaceful and wrathful deities encountered in the afterlife journey can be understood as projections of our own psychological complexes, the very archetypes that shape our perceptions and drive our behaviors. Join us as we embark on a captivating expedition into the heart of the psyche, guided by the ancient wisdom of the Bardo and the revolutionary insights of Jungian psychology. Together, we will map the uncharted territories of the unconscious and perhaps discover that the journey through the Bardos is not merely a passage after death, but a reflection of the lifelong process of self-discovery and transformation. The mystery of what lies beyond awaits. Before we embark on our journey through the Bardo and its psychological parallels, let's first set the stage by exploring some key concepts from the realm of depth psychology. At the heart of our investigation lies the idea of the unconscious mind, that vast, hidden realm of our psyche that operates beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. You can think of your mind like an iceberg floating in the ocean. The small portion you can see above the water represents your conscious mind, your thoughts, feelings, and experiences that you're directly aware of. But beneath the surface lies the much larger unconscious mind, a realm of hidden depths and untold mysteries. In fact, some psychologists estimate that the unconscious makes up around 95% of our mental processing. That means the vast majority of what's going on in your mind is happening below the level of your awareness. It's like having a massive complex factory operating under your feet, churning out thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, while you're only aware of what's happening on the top floor. The idea of the unconscious was first popularized by Sigmund Freud, who saw it as a repository for all the thoughts, memories, and desires that we repress or cannot face. Freud believed that these hidden contents of the mind, though out of sight, continue to influence our conscious experience in profound ways. A common example is the Freudian slip, where we accidentally say something that reveals our true unconscious feelings. Or think about the bizarre symbols and storylines that emerge in our dreams. Freud saw these as disguised expressions of our repressed wishes and fears. But it was Freud's student Carl Jung who really expanded our understanding of this hidden realm. While Freud focused on the personal unconscious, shaped by our individual experiences and repressions, Jung proposed an additional layer, the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious, according to Jung, is a universal part of the human psyche. It's a reservoir of primal patterns, instincts, and images that we all inherit by virtue of being human. Jung called these patterns archetypes. universal symbols or motifs that appear in myths, fairy tales, and dreams across all cultures. You can think of archetypes as psychological blueprints that structure our understanding of the world and our place in it. They're like the basic characters and storylines that make up the universal drama of human existence. The hero who sets out on a quest, faces trials, and returns transformed. The nurturing mother who provides unconditional love and support. The wise old man who appears as a guide or mentor. These are just a few examples of the countless archetypes that Jung identified. What's fascinating is that these archetypes don't just appear in stories and myths. They also shape our individual psyches, often without us realizing it. They influence how we perceive ourselves and others, the roles we take on, the goals we pursue. In a sense, we're all unconsciously playing out these archetypal patterns, enacting the universal dramas of the human psyche. One of the most powerful and challenging archetypes that Jung identified was the shadow. The shadow represents the dark, repressed, or unknown aspects of our personality, the parts of ourselves that we deny, hide, or project onto others. It's everything we're not proud of, everything we don't want to admit about ourselves. We all have a shadow, and its contents can vary from person to person. It might include qualities like aggression, selfishness, laziness, or greed. It could be made up of forbidden desires, shameful memories, or rejected aspects of our identity. Whatever its contents, the shadow is the part of us we'd rather not face. But here's the thing. The more we try to repress or deny our shadow, the more power it has over us. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The deeper you push it down, the more forcefully it's going to shoot back up. Jung believed that the key to psychological health and growth was not to eliminate the shadow, but to integrate it, to face it, understand it, and accept it as part of who we are. This process of integrating the shadow, of facing our dark side, and incorporating it into our conscious sense of self, is a crucial part of what Jung called individuation, the lifelong journey toward psychological wholeness and self-realization. It's a challenging process, one that requires courage, self-honesty, and compassion. But it's also a path to greater freedom, authenticity, and wholeness. And this, my curious friends, is where our story truly begins. As we turn the pages of the Bardo Thodol, we will see that the journey of the deceased through the intermediate states bears an uncanny resemblance to the process of individuation, of confronting the archetypes and integrating the shadow. The Bardos, in a sense, can be seen as a symbolic map of the unconscious itself, a guide to navigating the hidden depths of our own minds. The journey through the Bardos begins at the moment of death, in what the Tibetan tradition calls the Chikai Bardo. This is the stage where the dying person experiences the dissolution of the elements that make up their physical body and their sense of self. According to Tibetan Buddhist philosophy, our physical body is composed of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and space. At death, these elements begin to dissolve one by one. As the earth element dissolves, our body loses its solidity and strength. As the water element dissolves, our bodily fluids dry up. As the fire element dissolves, our warmth and digestion cease. As the wind element dissolves, our breath and movement come to a stop. Alongside this physical dissolution, the dying person's consciousness is said to withdraw from the senses. First, the sense of sight fades, dissolving into an experience of mirages. Then hearing dissolves into an experience of echoes, smell into smoke, taste into sparks, and touch into a flickering candle flame. Finally, the mental faculties dissolve, conceptual thought into a dim light, and the discriminating intellect into utter darkness. It is at this point According to the Bardo Thodol, that the dying person encounters the clear light of reality. This is described as a brilliant, all-encompassing awareness, free from all conceptual elaboration. It's a direct experience of the ultimate nature of mind, the fundamental ground of being. The text urges the dying person to recognize this clear light, to merge with it, and thus attain liberation from the cycle of rebirth. This moment of encountering the clear light is considered a profound opportunity in Tibetan Buddhism. It's seen as a chance to realize the ultimate truth, to break free from the illusions and suffering of conditioned existence. But it's also acknowledged as a difficult and fleeting opportunity. The habits and instincts of the mind are strong, and the pull to return to familiar patterns of perception and reaction is immense. From a psychological perspective, this moment of death and dissolution can be seen as a powerful metaphor for the death of the ego. The ego, in Jungian psychology, is the center of our conscious identity. It's the I that we take ourselves to be, the constructed sense of self that we navigate the world with. The ego develops over the course of our lives as a way to mediate between the demands of external reality and the urges of our unconscious mind. It helps us function in the world, set goals, make decisions, and relate to others. But the ego is also a kind of fiction, a limited and conditioned version of ourselves that we mistake for the whole. The ego filters our perception, deciding what to pay attention to and what to ignore based on its preconceptions and priorities. It creates a sense of separation between self and other, subject and object. It maintains itself by clinging to a consistent self-image, often repressing or denying aspects of ourselves that don't fit with that image. Think about a person who identifies very strongly with their job, status, or achievements. They may build their whole sense of self around being successful, important, or admired. But what happens when they fail or when life circumstances change? Their rigid ego identification becomes a source of stress and suffering. There are moments in life where we may experience a loosening or dissolving of the ego. It can happen in deep meditation, where the usual chatter of the mind subsides and we rest in pure awareness. It can happen in states of flow or absorption, where we become so immersed in an activity that the sense of self fades into the background. Some people report ego dissolution during psychedelic experiences, feeling a profound sense of unity or interconnectedness. In the Chikai Bardo, the experience of the clear light represents the ultimate dissolving of the ego. As the elements and senses fall away, so too do the usual reference points of the ego. The boundaries of self and other, inner and outer, dissolve into a vast, luminous expanse of awareness. It's a radical stripping away of all the layers of conditioning and construction that make up our usual sense of who we are. From a psychological perspective, this kind of ego death can be profoundly transformative. It's a chance to let go of limiting self-concepts, to experience a more expansive and authentic way of being. When we're not so tightly identified with our ego, we can be more open, more flexible, more compassionate. We're less driven by the need to protect and promote a particular self-image, and more able to respond to life with freshness and spontaneity. But as the Bardo Thodol makes clear, this is no easy feat. The prospect of ego death can be terrifying. It feels like a kind of annihilation, a loss of everything we know ourselves to be. Even if we intellectually understand the limitations of the ego, letting go of it is a profound existential challenge. We cling to the familiar, to our habitual patterns of thinking and being, even when they cause us suffering. This is represented in the Bardo Thodol by the soul's response to the clear light. For most, the text says, the brilliant luminosity of the clear light is too vast, too overwhelming. Instead of merging with it, they turn away. Seeking the comfort of more familiar, less challenging lights, they're drawn back into the realm of form, of self and other. of the endless cycle of birth and death, and so the journey continues, as the soul, still clinging to its ego habits, descends into the next Bardo realm. But the seed of awakening has been planted, the potential for liberation glimpsed, as we move forward in our exploration of the Bardo Thodol and the deeper layers of the psyche. Keep this moment of the clear light in your thoughts. It will appear again and again, inviting us to let go, to die before we die, and to discover the boundless dimensions of our true nature. We now turn to the second and most elaborate phase of the Bardo journey, the Chonyid Bardo, or the Bardo of the experiencing of reality. This is where the deceased person encounters a series of visions, both peaceful and wrathful, that the Bardo Thodol describes in vivid, often terrifying detail. For the first 7 days of the Chonyid Bardo, the text describes a series of encounters with peaceful deities, luminous and beautiful. These include the Buddhas of the 5 families, each associated with a particular color, wisdom, and realm of existence. Then, for the next 7 days, the visions take on a more horrific form. Wrathful deities, blood-drinking and skull-garlanded, surrounded by flames and wielding fearsome weapons. From a Jungian perspective, these peaceful and wrathful deities can be understood as manifestations of the archetypes of the collective unconscious. They are the primordial, universal patterns that structure our psyche, given form and voice in the language of the Bardo realms. Remember, archetypes are the basic templates of human existence, the fundamental characters and storylines that we all share. They're not specific images or symbols, but rather the underlying patterns that give rise to those symbols across cultures and throughout history. The mother, the hero, the wise old man, the trickster. These are just a few of the countless archetypes that Jung identified. Archetypes often make themselves known in symbolic form, through the characters that appear in our dreams, the fantasies that capture our imagination, the myths and fairy tales that resonate across generations. They speak the language of image and emotion, communicating profound truths about the human condition that go beyond words. In the peaceful deity visions of the Chonyid Bardo, we can see manifestations of the positive, luminous aspects of certain archetypes. The Buddha Vairochana, white and radiant, can be seen as an embodiment of the self-archetype, the unifying center of the psyche, the divine within. Vajrasattva, blue and holding a vajra and bell, represents the union of opposites, the transcendence of dualities. Encountering these peaceful deities can be understood as coming into contact with the enlightened aspects of our own psyche. They represent the potential for wisdom, compassion, and transformation that lies within each of us. In Jungian terms, they are the mana personalities, the positive numinous figures that can guide us towards individuation and wholeness. But the Chonyid Bardo also confronts us with the shadow side of the archetypes, the wrathful deities, terrifying and demonic. These are the aspects of our psyche that we often try to ignore, repress, or project onto others. They are the embodiments of our deepest fears, our most primal aggression and desire. Jung saw the shadow as the repressed or unknown parts of the personality, often with negative or socially undesirable qualities. It's everything we don't want to acknowledge about ourselves. Our anger, our selfishness, our prejudices, our wounds. We all have a shadow, and the more we try to deny or suppress it, the more power it has over us. One way the shadow often manifests is through projection. When we deny our own negative qualities, we often see them magnified in others. We might accuse someone of being selfish because we can't face our own selfishness. We might be repulsed by someone's anger because we're afraid of our own anger. Projection is a defense mechanism that keeps the shadow unconscious and unintegrated. The wrathful deities of the Chonyid Bardo can be seen as personifications of these shadow qualities. They are the rage-filled Hayagriva, the blood-drinking Vajrapani, the skull-garlanded Yamantaka. They brandish weapons, they howl and growl, they dance in fields of fire. They are, in a sense, the ultimate projections of the unacknowledged aspects of our psyche. Encountering the wrathful deities is a confrontation with the shadow in its most intense and terrifying form. It's a call to acknowledge and integrate these dark aspects of ourselves, rather than continuing to repress or project them. This is no easy task. It requires immense courage, self-honesty, and compassion. It's the ultimate challenge of individuation. As Jung wrote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. Facing the shadow is painful, but it's essential for psychological wholeness. When we can acknowledge our own darkness, we're less likely to project it onto others or act it out unconsciously. The Bardo Thodol urges the deceased to recognize the wrathful deities as manifestations of their own mind, to see through their terrifying appearances to their true nature. This is the key to liberating transformation. When we can face our shadow with awareness and acceptance, its energy can be transmuted. Anger can become assertiveness and strength. Greed can become motivation and abundance. Fear can become prudence and respect. In this sense, the shadow can be seen not just as an adversary, but as a teacher and a guide. It shows us the parts of ourselves that need attention, the wounds that need healing, the gifts that lie dormant. By engaging with the shadow consciously, we can tap into immense reserves of vitality, creativity, and self-knowledge. This is the profound invitation of the Chonyid Bardo, to confront the full spectrum of our being, the light and the dark, the ecstatic and the terrifying. It's a journey into the heart of the psyche, where all the gods and demons dwell. And it's a reminder that these figures are not separate from us, but are us, in all our complex, contradictory humanity. As we move into the next phase of the Bardo journey, keep this lesson close to your heart. The path to wholeness lies not in denying or escaping the shadow, but in facing it, embracing it, and ultimately transcending it. For it is only by integrating all aspects of our being that we can hope to awaken to the true nature of the mind, vast and luminous, peaceful and free. As we journey deeper into the realms of the Bardo, we come to the final stage of the intermediate state, the Sidpa Bardo, or the Bardo of Rebirth. This is where the consciousness of the deceased, having gone through the profound experiences of the Chikai and Chonyid Bardos, now faces the powerful pull towards a new incarnation. In the traditional Buddhist understanding, rebirth is not the end of the journey, but rather another turning in the ongoing cycle of existence, or samsara. Unless one has attained liberation through recognizing the true nature of mind in the previous Bardos, one will be drawn inexorably towards a new birth, a new form, a new set of life experiences. From a psychological perspective, this pull towards rebirth can be understood as the deep-seated tendencies and patterns of the psyche reasserting themselves. Even after the profound confrontations with the unconscious in the Chonyid Bardo, the habitual structures of the mind often remain, pulling us back into familiar ways of thinking, feeling, and being. We can think of psychological rebirth as the re-emergence of the ego after a transformative experience. Imagine, for example, someone who goes through a profound spiritual awakening, a deep therapeutic process, or a life-changing event. For a time, their usual sense of self may fall away, and they may touch a more expansive, less conditioned way of being. But often, with time, the ego structures reassemble themselves, and the person returns to their familiar identity. Why is this pull of rebirth so strong? From a Jungian perspective, it has to do with the immense power of the unconscious mind and the deep-rootedness of our psychological patterns. Over the course of our lives, we develop countless habits of thought, emotion, and behavior. These patterns become ingrained, forming the very structure of our psyche. Even when we have moments of insight or liberation, the gravitational pull of these patterns remains. In the Sidpa Bardo, the Bardo Todol describes how the consciousness of the deceased is drawn towards different realms of rebirth based on their karmic tendencies. The text speaks of visions of copulating couples, of being pulled towards different colored lights, of feeling intense attraction or aversion towards different potential birthplaces. Psychologically, we can understand this as the way our unconscious patterns and tendencies shape our lives and choices, often without our conscious awareness. There's also something in the psyche that seems to inherently drive towards form, towards manifestation. Jung spoke of the self, the archetype of wholeness, as having a natural impulse towards incarnation, towards expressing itself in the world of form. We see this in the way dreams often try to compensate for imbalances in our waking life, or in the way the unconscious pushes us towards certain experiences or relationships that we need for our growth. The challenge of the Sidpa Bardo, then, is to become conscious of these deep-seated patterns and tendencies, and to find a way to work with them skillfully. Just as the Bardo Todol advises the deceased to recognize the visions of the Sidpa Bardo as projections of their own mind, we too can learn to see our unconscious drives and impulses as part of our own psyche, rather than as external fatalities. This is where practices of self-reflection, mindfulness, and inner work become so important. By bringing conscious awareness to our patterns, we start to have more choice in how we engage with them. We can start to discern which patterns serve our growth and which ones keep us stuck. We can learn to channel the energy of our unconscious in more creative, life-affirming ways. Ultimately, the goal of this kind of psychological work is not dissimilar from the goal of the Bardo teachings: to awaken to the fundamental nature of our being, beyond the conditioned patterns of the mind. In the language of psychology, this might be described as realizing the self, the archetypal core of our being that transcends the ego. In the language of the Bardo Todol, it is recognizing the clear light, the inherent luminosity of the mind itself as we navigate the challenges of the Sidpa Bardo, both in the intermediate state and in our daily lives. May we remember this essential possibility of awakening. May we learn to work skillfully with the powerful energies of the psyche, not to repress or deny them, but to integrate and transform them. And may we, again and again, turn towards that clear light of awareness, the ever-present possibility of liberation that shines at the heart of our being. As we come to the end of our journey through the profound teachings of the Bardo Todol, let's pause to consider how we can weave these wisdom threads into the tapestry of our daily lives. How can we make the insights of the Bardo practical, tangible, and transformative? One of the key lessons of the Bardo is the importance of awareness, learning to recognize the projections and illusions that color our experience. We can cultivate this awareness through the practice of mindfulness. Set aside a few minutes each day to simply observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment. Notice how they arise, dwell, and pass away. Over time, this practice can help you develop a greater capacity to witness your mental states, rather than being swept away by them. As you go about your day, try to bring this mindful awareness to your interactions and activities. When you find yourself getting caught up in stress, anxiety, or reactivity, See if you can take a step back and observe what's happening in your mind. This simple act of recognition can be incredibly powerful, allowing you to respond to challenges with greater clarity and equanimity. Another powerful way to engage with the teachings of the Bardo is through the practice of shadow work. One simple technique is to keep a shadow work journal. Each day, take a few minutes to write about the qualities or experiences you tend to avoid, suppress, or deny. Perhaps it's a feeling of anger or sadness, a memory of failure or rejection, or a trait you find unacceptable in yourself. As you write, try to approach these shadow elements with curiosity and compassion. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this part of myself? How might embracing this quality actually serve my growth and wholeness? By bringing the light of awareness to the shadowy corners of your psyche, you gradually integrate these rejected parts and reclaim your full humanity. The ultimate goal of the Bardo teachings is to recognize the clear light, the fundamental luminosity of awareness that underlies all experience. One way to touch into this awareness is through a simple meditation practice. Find a quiet place to sit and close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths, settling into the present moment. Now, instead of focusing on any particular thought or sensation, see if you can rest in the simple awareness that is observing your experience. This awareness is like a clear, boundless space in which thoughts and perceptions arise and pass away. As you rest in this awareness, you might notice a sense of openness, peace, or clarity. This is a taste of the clear light, the essential nature of your mind. With regular practice, you can learn to access this awareness more readily, even amidst the busyness and challenges of daily life. Remember, the journey through the Bardos is not just an esoteric or abstract teaching. It's a vivid, visceral map of the human psyche, a guide to navigating the ups and downs of our inner landscape. By engaging with these teachings in a practical, embodied way, we gradually awaken to the immense potential that lies within us. So start small. Choose one of these practices to work with over the coming weeks. Keep a mindfulness journal. Explore your shadow with curiosity and courage, or set aside a few minutes each day to rest in clear awareness. See for yourself how these ancient wisdom teachings can illuminate and transform your modern life. And as you walk this path of self-discovery, remember that you're not alone. The Bardo teachings are a reminder of our shared humanity, of the universal joys and struggles that connect us all. By engaging with this wisdom, you're participating in a timeless conversation, a dialogue between the ancient and the modern, the inner and the outer, the personal and the universal. So keep exploring, keep practicing, keep awakening to the vast potential of your own mind, and may the light of your discovery shine brightly, illuminating the way for all those who follow.